Hey, it's Sam from Folk of All Trades here. We're down at the goat yard on beautiful Kaurna country, and today I'm going to be talking about cheese making. We make a paneer and soft cheese quite often, just a simple rennet chev in this case because we're using goat's milk. A big thanks to Resilient South for supporting this video. That's the cities of Mitcham, Marion, Holdfast Bay and Onkaparinga. They are the Resilient South councils. And yeah, let's go into the kitchen. We'll show you everything from how we milk the goats all the way through to making cheese at home with a minimum of equipment. Let's talk cheese making at home. Cheese making is such a really interesting topic. It's probably the oldest food preservation technology. And traditionally, lots of our ancestors might have been involved in cheese making. It's something that you would do when you have excess milk, so milk to spare. That might happen at certain times of the year, seasonally, when there's lots of food and so production increases, or it might happen after an animal gives birth and produces lots and lots of milk. And of course, we've bred animals to produce more milk than their kids and their calves can drink. So cheese making, of course, there's thousands of different cheeses, and of those cheeses, there's lots of different variations within them. Every cheesemaker will do things slightly differently. I've been heavily influenced by natural cheese making. A guy called David Asher, I think he's originally Canadian, travels all over the world teaching. He's got a great book called Natural Cheese Making that I find really inspiring. So I'm going to be talking about dairy cheese today. Obviously there are vegan cheeses as well. It's completely different in terms of the ingredients, obviously, but also the processes involved. So they're not really translatable. I'm just going to be focusing on dairy cheese. So the first thing you need to think about is where you're going to source milk. Danny and I helped start a goat co-op a number of years ago because we really wanted to control the process of how we get milk and also reduce some of the packaging as well. So we've banded together with a lot of other people. I think it's up to about 10 now. And basically we milk 1 day a week and get about 7 litres of milk at the moment. Not everyone's going to be part of a goat co-op. We do have friends with house cows, and so they milk cows, and obviously you need a fair bit of space for that. So most people are going to be buying milk from various places. It is important to think about where that milk comes from. It's a precious resource like all food. And if you can afford it, organic is the way to go. Just better for the land, better for the animals. Good quality milk is going to make good quality cheese. And you always want to use the highest fat you possibly can. So full fat, leave the skim milk aside. That being said, if you do come across a heap of milk all at once, you can use it to make cheese. Some of our friends do skip diving, and maybe there's a lot of milk that's being discounted, and so you can rescue that milk and make it into cheese. Paneer is actually a great way to do that. But yeah, if you're buying milk, full fat, organic if you can. I'm going to start making paneer. So paneer is so simple, you only need a few ingredients. A pot, a nice good quality pot, ideally with a reasonably thick base. That just helps reduce scorching. You need some kind of stirring implement. Stainless steel is great, and I like that it has a flat bottom, this one, so I can really scrape around and make sure the milk doesn't burn. You don't need a thermometer, but it is useful. Otherwise, I'll tell you some tricks for how to get around that. Cheesecloth, which is also known as muslin, or a fine sieve. You can use both. Some kind of bowl to catch the whey, and then for paneer, you need some kind of acid. We use white vinegar, just regular white vinegar, white wine vinegar. I probably wouldn't use strong flavoured vinegars like apple cider vinegar or malt vinegar, just because it will affect the taste of the paneer. So just a cheap white vinegar is good. We can buy them in bulk, 20 litres is a great way to do it. So paneer, we need to heat this milk up. This milk is already still a little bit warm from when we milked this morning, but if it came straight out of the fridge, then you'll obviously need to heat it up. Basically, paneer happens at high temperature, so we bring the milk almost up to a boil, and then we add vinegar, and that causes the curds and the whey to separate. Just with that addition of acid, basically separates it out. It's kind of what happens in the gut. There is another process that I'll talk about when we talk about soft cheese, But basically now I just need to wait till this comes up to temperature, and it's really important not to walk away because number one, it could stick and burn. So every now and again, I'm just going to move it around and make sure I'm scraping the bottom. And the other thing is it could overflow. If you leave and start doing something else and get distracted, you could come back and there's milk overflowing everywhere, and that's not fun to clean up. So come back in just a second when this is up to temperature and I'll show you the next step. Well, the paneer came up to the boil, and lucky I was standing right here because it starts to rise pretty quickly. And using my thermometer, you know, maybe I would have been able to see that a little bit earlier, but you don't need a thermometer because it's basically just, once it comes up to boil, then you know it's ready for the next stage. Now I talked about using vinegar, which is our preferred method. A lot of people also use lemon juice, and it's basically the same kind of ratio. For 2 litres of milk, which is what I've got here, it's about 8 tablespoons of vinegar or lemon juice. I just eyeball everything. If it's not enough, you can always add a little bit more, you know, if it doesn't coagulate. So I've just mixed that into a little bit of water, and that basically just chills it out, makes it not so concentrated, and will help me with mixing in. So I'll try and do it in front actually, so you can see exactly what happens. Just put a chopping board down because it's a pretty hot pot. It's kind of exciting. You just pour in, and the chemical reaction takes place almost immediately, where you start to see that whey and curds separate. So at this point, you have to be really gentle because the curds are very, very delicate, and you don't want to break them up so much that, you know, they're going to go through a cheesecloth or a sieve. So that can just sit there and chill out now. And I said, you know, use the best quality milk you possibly can. The great thing about paneer is because you're bringing it up to the boil, and it does, you know, it does have a pretty neutral flavor at the end. You can actually use kind of old milk that isn't ideal anymore for drinking. You know, maybe even it's starting to taste a little bit sour. And because we're bringing it up to the boil, it basically makes it safe and makes it taste good. So yeah, I really like that as a use for slightly older milk. Now that's just going to chill out. We will strain it in a moment, but I'll switch to talking about the soft cheese. So there's so many different names for soft cheeses, and it all depends on these little small idiosyncratic details of how you treat it. But basically every soft cheese, you know, you raise the milk up to about 32 degrees temperature. That's udder temperature, or you know, the temperature of the inside of a calf or a kid. And at that point we need to culture. So not quite as simple as the paneer. We need to add some kind of culture, some kind of enzymes that are going to start acidifying the milk, so that then when we add rennet, the rennet can do its job properly. There's a couple of different ways to add culture, and typically I use milk kefir. So milk kefir is different to water kefir, which is something that we drink all the time. Basically it's a little symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast that likes to eat milk. And it produces all of these byproducts, these compounds that will acidify this milk too. And so I just add a little bit in. We do it once a week. I keep it in the fridge between those times, but that's a little bit more advanced. If you're really interested in that, then I do recommend that David Asher book. A lot of people start off with cheese making using a culture, a store-bought culture that's created in a lab. I got this one from Green Living Australia. They sell lots of cheese making equipment, and this is a soft mesophilic culture, and it just depends on what cheese you're trying to make. I'm trying to make a soft cheese, so this is the culture to use. Now you use a tiny amount. This little packet makes 100 litres of cheese from 100 litres of milk, and so they recommend just using the tip of a knife to just get this tiny little dusting, and that's enough to add it there. If you are using pasteurized milk from the shop, then you'll need to add some calcium carbonate as well. That just helps put back some of the nutrients that were lost during pasteurization. So a little bit of calcium carbonate, which you can also get from that Green Living Australia. So I'm just gently now mixing that culture in. It's already at 32 degrees, and I'll just make sure that's properly stirred and incorporated. And now that can just rest here on the stove top for 1 hour. So set a timer, you don't forget, 1 hour plus or minus, it doesn't really matter, but 1 hour is a pretty good rule of thumb at that 32 degrees, and just cover it up so we don't get anything going in there that we don't want. Now, that's pretty much perfect timing for our paneer here. It's separated really nicely, and how to get it from the pot into a sieve or a colander lined with cheesecloth. There's a few different methods. Some people use another sieve and gently ladle it out. I'm a bit slapdash for all that kind of stuff, so I tend to just pour it in. Now, I normally do this over at the sink, but I'll do it here so you can see. Actually, pause, Danny. We'll do it at the sink. That's a better idea. Okay, we're ready to pour in. I just thought I'd put it into this bucket actually, so the whey doesn't sit against the cheese in that small bowl. And just a little tip, if you are using a sieve or something that's too big, then it's a really good idea to put, some kind of implement there so it can't fall in. That was a lesson I learnt the hard way. So I'm just going to line that with the cheesecloth now and very, very, very gently pour it in. I'm trying to pour off as much of the whey first as possible, but looks like the paneer wants to come. So just really gently pouring that in. Now, that looks like that's pretty much just whey left, so I don't need to pour all that through and disturb the paneer. I always put it into a bucket or some kind of vessel like this because I want to keep that whey. It's really, really good. We're just going to leave this to chill out now and drain, and we can come check on it in a little bit. Our paneer has been resting for an hour now, just draining, while our other cheese has been culturing. So just to finish off talking about paneer, as you saw, really simple. Bring the milk up to a boil, add some kind of acid, vinegar, lemon juice, and then separate the curds from the whey and strain it off. Now, how long you leave it draining will adjust how soft it is or how firm it is. A lot of people like to fry their paneer, for a curry or just to enjoy by itself. So they want it quite firm, and in order to make it firmer, you can tie it up and have it hanging somewhere and just slowly dripping. Some people actually even press it, put it between two boards and put something heavy on it. I'm not too fussed. I just leave it for a while and kind of check its texture. One thing that you can do while it's still a little bit of warmth in it is just add some salt, just to flavour it, help preserve it, but also obviously for flavour. And that does draw a little bit of moisture out as well. So I'll just add a little sprinkle over there. It's not a huge amount of paneer. It was only 2 litres of goat milk, which is lower in fat. And so that's probably about 250 grams of paneer. So yeah, the yield is around 10%. So just keep that in mind for when you're making quantities. Let's turn our attention now to the soft cheese, the chèvre in this case. Chèvre is the French pronunciation or French name for a goat soft cheese. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. If you were to make it with cow's milk, then it would be a vache. So again, all these little different names and things for the different cheeses and depending where they were made. It's cultured, it's been sitting there for 1 hour now at 32 degrees, and the time has come to add our rennet. Now that is the process that's going to separate the curds from the whey. Just like we did with acid, with the paneer, we're going to use rennet to do that, which is a much gentler process, happens at body temperature. So rennet is taken from the stomach lining of a calf, and that's how it's commercially produced. You can get vegetarian rennets that have a similar kind of enzyme, so they do that in much the same way. There are actually plant rennets as well. I know people use fig sap to separate the curds from the whey. So there's lots of cool different options depending on what you have access to and what you want to do. So I've got some liquid rennet here, and I'm going to add it to water. Again, just to space it out a bit, not make it so extreme as it goes into the milk. And for a soft cheese, you don't actually need very much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 drops. And then I'll just give that a little mix around. And basically, as soon as we add it to the milk, it's going to start that coagulation process, that separating from the curds from the whey. So have your equipment ready because we're going to need to stir it for about 20 seconds just so it's really nicely mixed in. And we don't want to agitate it, froth it up, but we do want to make sure that it's really, really well mixed. So I tend to stir in one direction for a moment, then change directions just so it kind of swishes around a bit gently. And if you were dealing with a much bigger quantity of milk, then going up and down is a really good little technique as well. That just helps incorporate it from the different layers. So I'm going to slow the milk down so it doesn't keep whirlpooling. And now we're going to leave that for another hour. So it's a little bit like bread making in that, there's a little bit of a task, a bit of an activity, and then you just step away. Again, set a timer so that you don't forget. And yeah, join me in an hour and we'll do the next step. Well, it's been an hour and you can tell that the rennet has done its job because it's pulled away slightly from the sides of the pot there. And the other thing you can do is check for a clean break. So basically, I've got clean hands, I just washed them. You put your finger under and just lift up and it snaps quite nicely. So that's a little test, a little cheese making test. And basically that means the rennet's done its job, the curds have separated from the whey, and now we need to basically try and remove some of that whey. So using a knife, you can use a serrated knife or a straight knife. I'm just going to cut into approximately 1 centimeter cubes. Some people are really, really good at this and can do it so evenly. I'm a little bit more random. And ideally, you cut into cubes in one direction and then the other. And then also you go side to side, but obviously you can't access side to side using the knife, so you just have to do your best. Nearly all my crisscrosses done. And so then I kind of go sideways like this and just try and cut some of those bigger pieces of the curds up a little bit. There are fancy tools you can buy that slice it all up perfectly, but a knife works pretty well too. Now, obviously these aren't perfect cubes yet, so if I do a bit of lifting with my slotted spoon here, then I can just break some of those bigger curds into pieces. And essentially what this is doing is releasing more and more whey from the curds. If we just put a whole block into our sieve or into the cheese mold that we're going to use, then yeah, it would take a lot longer to drain out and would affect the texture in the end of the cheese. So a big part of different cheese making, different styles of cheese, is how small you make these curds. For instance, in a hard cheese, you would cut them really, really small using a whisk even, tiny, tiny little pieces. And for something like feta, you would actually increase the temperature at this point. So all of these little adjustments make different kinds of cheese. For this simple soft cheese, this Chev, all we need to do is reduce the size of these curds a little bit, and then they can go to drain. So I'm pretty happy with that. I could leave this to rest for a couple of minutes just for it to drop down, but I'm happy to go ahead. So I've got a beautiful little cheese mold here that a friend of ours, shout out to Bill, made. We saw them online. They're relatively expensive to buy. He's a potter, so we said, please, can you make us some? And yeah, we really love them. It's just ceramic with some holes drilled into it. You can buy them. There are also plastic ones that you can get. We just like the ceramic because obviously there's nothing to interact with the cheese. There's no bits that can get stuck or anything like that, or plastic compounds. So I'm going to put just a bit of curds into here using the slotted spoon, and I've got a way for it to drain out underneath without going all over the counter. So this is not necessary. You could totally put it just into the cheesecloth like I did with the paneer, but it is pretty fancy looking and kind of makes something that looks like a crumbly camembert in the end. So I'm going to fill it right up to the top because this is going to shrink down a huge amount as the water drips out of the bottom. It's going to shrink and shrink and shrink, and at some point I will actually flip this as well. So that's that mold that can just sit there, and the rest of it I'm going to put into the cheesecloth exactly the same as I did with the paneer. gentle pouring. And I'm going to add it to the other whey that I kept. So I always try and keep the whey because it's got some really good uses in the kitchen, but also in the garden. You can use it in place of water, in bread making, or in cakes. You can use it as a starter for fermentation for things like sauerkraut. And you can also drink it. It's just slightly acidic water, healthy for you. I find animals really like to drink it. So some people give it to their dogs, or we feed it to our chickens. We actually soak some grain in the whey and feed it to our chickens, and they drink some as well. It's really, really good for them. Or you can put them onto plants. So plants really appreciate, obviously I haven't put any salt or anything in this, so it's just the whey and the culture. And yeah, plants absolutely love it. It's a great source of calcium, so we put it on our tomatoes in summer or our brassicas in winter. And that is draining nicely. I'll just show you. So the yield was a little bit higher there. We also used more milk to begin with, probably about 3 litres for that soft cheese. So now I'm just going to let that drain, and once it's to the consistency that I like, I'll salt it and pop it into the fridge. The paneer will probably last about a week in the fridge before it starts to get a little bit funky. That one's, because it's been boiled, it doesn't have the natural bacteria and things that are protecting it. The soft cheese can age much longer, so 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it can continue to ripen and mature, and some people like it really, really funky, so they leave it for ages. That's simple cheese making. That's the very tip of the iceberg of cheese making. It's a really fascinating topic. As I said, check out that natural cheese making book or other books that you might have at your local library, or get in touch with local cheesemakers. They're always happy to share information. Thanks for joining me, and a big thanks to Resilient South for supporting this video. We'll see you in the next one. Well, it's the next day, and I just thought I'd show you the final product. So we've got the paneer here, which has actually gone really firm. You can see there, that's ready to be cut into pieces and lightly fried if I was going to do a saag paneer or some kind of curry, or just enjoy it on the side. And then I've also got a chev here, which you can see has also gone relatively firm. I actually probably left that a little bit too long in the colander there, just draining. The one that I really like is this one. It's come into this nice little hockey puck shape, and that'd be beautiful on a cheese board, enjoyed with friends. So those are the cheeses. They can just go in the fridge now and hang out until we're ready to eat them. I hope you give it a go, and yeah, let us know and send us pictures. We're always keen to see what people get up to.